Why is my five sensory partner so rude and disrespectful? Today, I'm talking about long-term relationships with five sensory partners when you're the sixth sensory sensitive partner. And what can happen over time when you actually engage in a long-term relationship with a five sensory partner, or it could even be a very long-term relationship with a family member. It could be a parent, a sibling, or somebody very close to you in your family circle who is five sensory, is that you take each other for granted. And what does that mean? So when you take each other for granted, what happens is you become a little bit lazy at maintaining the relationship. You may even try really hard to be nice, but being nice is sort of a short-term compromise measure that doesn't really work in the long term. And how do I mean that? I mean that when the family member or the disrespectful partner makes a rude and snide remark, you don't say anything. And sometimes it's smart not to say anything. It's better you don't say anything than to explode. But the problem with this tactic is it's really a short-term tactic because words hurt over time. And sooner or later, you probably will lose your cool and you will explode if these words keep building up over and over and over again, and you don't have any strategy on how to handle rude and disrespectful behavior. So how do you handle rude and disrespectful behavior? If there is something that you do for your friends, for your family, for your partner, that you're very, very close to, for example, you're willing to help them with household chores or cook them meals or something like that, the perfect thing to do when they're rude and disrespectful is to take a step back with your actions. Your actions speak a lot louder than words. However, the word ouch can be very helpful as well. If somebody does say something rude and disrespectful, you don't have to go on and on about your feelings. You can just send a subtle signal by going ouch when they've said something, because then they're aware that they've done something wrong. That is a little boundary right there where they realize that their behavior could be belligerent or upsetting. However, sometimes that word isn't really enough because sometimes people are very aware of what they're doing and they're doing something intentionally. It could be for control. It could be that they're just having a bad day and they really don't care about how you're feeling on that given day. But whatever the reason is, you need to have a stronger boundary at times than just saying ouch, although it's a beginning. It sends a signal, and sometimes that's enough for the five sensory to clue in and go, oh, okay, maybe my behavior today wasn't so good. Maybe I need to self-reflect on my behavior. Now, having said that, a lot of five sensories are not that perceptive. They're very, very thick, and they're in their own left brain logical world. And so they may go on, continuing to say mean and negative, traumatic things, and they're pretty oblivious, pretty unconscious of their damaging behavior. And so what do you do as a sixth sensory? Well, when people are not behaving well, you have to keep taking stronger and stronger measures to step back. So that could be potentially not talking to them for a while. That could be moving out into a different household if that's what you need to do, moving out into a different room if you're married. Potentially, these are boundaries that you can set with people when they're not behaving their best. And then if you are married, divorce would be the ultimate boundary, because what's going to happen if you don't set any boundaries at all is the divorce is going to happen anyway. Why is that? It's because the person has already risked the relationship by being so mean and damaging, and they're hoping that you're just going to take it. They've kind of taken you for granted and they haven't put any work or effort into the relationship. They just assume that you're going to be there. And we all kind of make those assumptions about our relationships from time to time, and we get a little slack. We're all human and we do take people for granted. But with five sensories, they can be quite mean and negative, and they have it all justified in their head why they're behaving that way. And so it can be very hard to get through with them in words to tell them, hey, this is why this behavior doesn't work for me. And so you really need to do it through actions, I have found. Words are not usually strong enough to send a signal to them that what they're doing in their behavior is not acceptable. And so what happens next is that you need to go and get some help. Yes, that's what I said. We're used to trying to solve all of these problems on our own as sixth sensories, but what we actually need to do is go to an empowering community to get support, especially if we're making a big decision. Let's say you've set a lot of smaller boundaries and you don't feel you have anything left except divorce. Before you make that critical decision, you want to go to an empowering community and get support. You want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And even if you're in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, breaking up can be pretty hard. And so you just want to make sure that you're very happy with your decision and that you're moving forward. Now, sometimes if you take these questions to the wrong community and they're not sixth sensory sensitive people, what they might do is tell you what you want to hear. So a lot of people are really quick to tell you to dump your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and it's not always the right advice. Getting divorced is not typically the best advice, but it really depends. Sometimes if the abuse is that bad, you really have to in order to protect yourself. And so the way to know for sure what's appropriate for you is to seek help from an outside expert. Of course, your own intuition and your own decision making will trump anything an expert says. However, you just might need a sounding board, a very professional, very level-headed person outside the situation to talk to help you make sense of it, to help you realize, is this thing worth saving or is it time to let it go? Because sometimes, actually very often with coaching and a lot of good relationship help and skills, you can set more boundaries. You can try more things before you get to that stage, and it could be really worthwhile to try more tools before you leave a relationship just to make sure you've grown as a person and you've gotten everything you can out of this relationship before you've needed to fold and move on to a new person. Sometimes being single can be challenging. We don't want to become too negative about the dating culture out there. It's important to set boundaries against people who are going to manipulate us or just use us for the short term. That's very important. But it's also critical to realize that we don't want to demonize the opposite sex or whichever sex we're attracted to. We don't want to demonize people who are just pretty unconscious people, typically five sensories are, and they're trying to get their needs met one way or the other. Instead, how you want to see them is realize that they are people who may or may not be able to share the same space as you. If they're in the same vibration and the same frequency, or they're close to your frequency, then they can share space with you. But not everybody deserves to be in that space with you long term. Other people are really meant to be on the outside or on the outskirts of your life, and that's okay. You need to set boundaries and decide who gets to be in your inner circle, who's really treating you the best out of all the people in your life and really supporting you with your goals, dreams, and ambitions. Who's been there for you? Who has flown across the country when you've needed help or picked you up at the airport? And it's not always your immediate family. Sometimes it's your really good friends who will do this for you. But you want to recognize who they are, and you want to give your love and support to those people and let them into your inner circle. They are the ones who truly deserve your love and attention the most. And sometimes our friendships do outlast our romantic relationships, which is just part of how society is today. And so that's why we need to really love and cherish the people around us who are there for the long term.